Hello everybody, how are you doing? So I've talked before on this channel about how to approach parrots in a way that gives them a better first impression of you. The thing is those skills aren't going to do you that much good unless you can understand how parrots communicate. So we're going to continue Bird Whispering 101 in today's video and talk a little bit about the basics of parrot body language. So most people think of parrots and other birds as communicating primarily with noise. And they do to an extent, but the vast majority of their communication, like with other animals, is through their body language. Now before we really get into it, it's important to remember that these are generalized patterns followed by most species of parrots. Some species might differ slightly based on their physiology, and some individual birds just like to march to the beat of their own drums. So in order to avoid getting bitten, it's best to play it safe and pay very close attention to the birds you're interacting with. And it's important to remember that by playing with parrots of any size, you run the risk of getting bitten, and especially some of the larger species can cause a lot of damage, sometimes enough to warrant a trip to the emergency room. So please be very careful when approaching any bird. Do not let children handle any birds without supervision, and never let a bird you don't know on your shoulder or anywhere near your face. I have to stop a lot of people in pet stores from trying to pet some of the large birds because even though those birds know me and will tolerate me petting them, they won't tolerate just anybody sticking their fingers in their cage. Some of these are parrots that I've known literally for years, and I trust them not to bite me hard enough to really hurt me. It takes time to build up that kind of trust bond between a bird and a human, so, approach with caution. And if you do get bitten, it's important to remember not to react. Many birds will bite just to see what kind of entertaining reaction they can elicit from you. Just calmly, quietly, and safely remove yourself from the situation and ignore the bird for a few minutes. Parrots just love to be in the center of attention, and you can help condition them to behave better by removing your attention when they misbehave. So let's just start with some of the basics of birdie body language. There's a few main points of the body you can look at when you're trying to get a read on how they're feeling. Feathers, tail, head, wings. Now a bird's body feathers or contour feathers can tell you a lot about how the bird is feeling. If a bird's feathers are lying very flat against the body, it means that they are nervous or frightened, so don't approach because a frightened bird is inclined to bite. A bird with all its feathers fluffed up very cutely is probably sleepy, especially if they're standing with one foot tucked up into their feathers and are grinding their beak. Alternatively, it can also mean a bird is chilled or sick, so make sure to keep them away from drafty areas in your house and take them to a certified avian vet once a year for a well bird exam. For any animal, but especially for birds, preventative medicine is the most effective medicine. A bird with its feathers held loose and comfortable against its body is feeling neutral or content. Parrots with crests, like cockatoos, cockatiels, and hawk-headed parrots, will probably have their crests flat or only raised a little bit. This is generally a good time to approach. A parrot that wants to be petted will only fluff up their head feathers. They might even show you exactly where they want to be scratched by petting with their foot. It's so cute. Now I have met some particularly mischievous parrots that like to pretend they want to be petted and then will try to bite you when your hand comes close. So if they do this and show any inclination to bite, just remove yourself from the situation and ignore them for a few minutes. Now birds will use their tails to steer and stabilize themselves during flight, but they also tell a lot about how that bird is feeling. A parrot that waggles its tail like this is super happy. I love those little tail waggles. I live for those little tail waggles. They're just so cute. A parrot that flares its tail out like this is excited. It's important to remember though that excitement's not always a good thing. It can lead to aggression. So if you see a bird doing this sort of thing, then approach them with caution, or better yet, maybe don't approach them until they've calmed down. Amazon parrots in particular will flare their tails a lot when they're excited. Birds don't just use their wings for flying either. Birds might flare their wings out to indicate excitement, aggression, or sometimes fear. This is often in combination with the tail flare I mentioned earlier. They might also flare their wings out a little bit while bobbing their heads up and down, which is a begging behavior usually seen in baby birds. Now this could mean the bird was weaned off of its baby formula too early, especially if they came from an unreputable breeder or a parrot mill. Yes, parrot mills are a thing, but more likely the bird's noticed that it's not the center of your universe anymore, and so it's trying to get your attention. Now in eclectus parrots, wing flicking and toe tapping are involuntary movements that are the result of a muscle spasm. Usually it means something is wrong with their diet. Either they're not getting enough vitamin A, or they're getting too much of it, or there's too many preservatives or whatever. Eclectus are very sensitive to their food. So make sure to do plenty of research, consult with a certified avian vet, and be very careful what you feed them. Now parrots will generally try to fly away if they're afraid of something, but if their wings are clipped or if they're confined in a cage and they can't get away from it, the next step is to bite. Flight pretty much always comes before fight in these instances, so either back off or try to find whatever's frightening them and get it away from them. So just like pretty much any other animal, you can figure out a lot about how a bird is feeling by looking at its face. After all, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and parrots' eyes are very expressive if you know what to look for. For example, they can dilate their pupils at will, which is a behavior they call pinning. Now pinning eyes can mean anything from excitement to aggression to just plain being interested in something. Now, a wide open beak is usually a warning. It means don't touch me or I'm gonna bite your fingers off. Some parrots might open and close their beaks or waggle their tongues at you, and that's usually a friendly hello. You can try doing this with parrots you meet and see how they respond. Now, some parrots, like the cockatiels, cockatoos, and hawk-headed parrots that I mentioned earlier, have crests on their heads. Raising these crests usually means they're excited or interested in something, but it can mean any number of things. So make sure to pay close attention to the rest of the bird's body language and get familiar with that particular individual. Also, don't try to make a crested parrot display its crest by lifting the feathers up for them. This can cause them to get overstimulated and usually will lead to a nasty bite. Now, this was a pretty generalized breakdown of how parrots tend to use body language to communicate, but some species are a little different than others. Most birds will flap and scream and try to fly away when they're afraid, but eclectus parrots will actually go very still and quiet. Also, macaws, large and small, tend to blush when they get excited, and all of these little bits and pieces can be used in any number of combinations. Parrots are incredibly intelligent and they're socially and emotionally complex, which is why it's so important to understand their body language. The more we know about how they communicate, the better we can take care of them and the better we can preserve them. So take some of the information I've provided here and go out and meet some parrots. Do some observation and see what you can learn for yourself. So anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And tell me all about your experience with birds in the comments below or on my Facebook page. I have to go to class soon, so I'll see you guys next week. Bye!